Hello everyone, welcome to Blender and Film. Now this is going to be a channel where I use Blender to make anything film related, maybe I'll put some short films up if I ever make them. I don't know, the channel's just starting out. But it's basically going to be using Blender as the compositor instead of using something like After Effects or other things like that, because Blender is free. And it's very easy to use once you know how to use it. It can take a little bit to learn how to use it, but once you know how to use it, you will start blazing through things. You will pick up things very quickly. So this tutorial is going to be for a beginner level. This is if you know some things about Blender, you know basically how to use it, you can follow along. It might be harder for some who have literally just started, maybe have just downloaded it like yesterday. But if you know something about Blender, you know how to use it, you should be getting along fine. This is going to be just something basic. It's going to be adding lens flares to live action film. This is not going to be something super realistic. It's going to be basically just showing you the ins and outs, how to do something basic, so you know how to start doing them on your own. So once you open up Blender, you'll see all this, the 3D view, but we're not going to need that. So what we're going to do is click up here, we'll go over to compositing, and let's turn on use nodes and backdrop. And we're not going to need this render layers. Also, let's take these two windows, we're not going to need them. So take this little corner bar thing here and click and hold until you see this arrow pop up, drag it to the right, or you can do it with the one over here and just drag it to the left to get rid of this one. But in either case, we're going to get rid of both of them, so we're going to click on this one and drag it down here. Now we're going to I'm going to hit the in key, and that's just going to get rid of this right here, and hit Shift A for add, or you can go down here, but we're going to use a movie clip and hit open and find where it's located. Now you should have your footage. An important thing about your footage, make sure that you have something. When you use a lens flare, what we're going to do, you're going to need a light source. So it could be a flashlight or a light in your house or something, but make sure that it's not too close to anything reflective, because the light will bounce off and it'll make everything just that bit more difficult. I'll show you how to solve a problem like that later, maybe in another video. Well, most likely in another video, because this is just basic. So we've got our footage here. We take it into the composite node, and these are called nodes. If you stop doing that. These are nodes. This is basically like a conveyor belt. If you don't know how this works, Andrew Price did a very good video on understanding the compositor, and I'll link that in the description. But this is showing that this is a video that you would know a little bit how to use a compositor. But what we're going to do is add we're going to click output and viewer so that we know what we're doing, because we clicked on backdrop but we don't see anything. That's just because this is the composite. This is the final node. Stop doing that. This node is basically what you do. It all goes into this node so that you can this is your final render. Anything that goes into here, this is what's going to be rendered. This viewer here, this is just so you can see what's going to be rendered. So we're going to take this and we can drag it into here. Because now we can see, but it's very close. So hit the V key and that will zoom out. We'll hit it again and again, and just keep doing it until your video is, you can see your whole video. Now if you want to zoom in, hit the Alt and V key, and that will zoom in. but V is to zoom out. Hit Alt and then V if you want to zoom in. Yeah, V to zoom out, Alt V to zoom in. Okay, now we've got two different nodes going in here. Now this is gonna be a little bit trickier to work with. There's a shortcut just to make it a little bit easier, so you don't have to keep going through the nodes and then changing it all up, and then sometimes you'll render it and then realize I forgot to connect what I have in the viewer to the compositor, or to the composite node, sorry. So there's a trick you can do, and we'll just pull that off, and then hold Shift, click and drag with the left, drag it across this line, and then that will add this little thing right here. Now this just splits the line, so it just makes it a little bit easier to work with, so it only goes into one and then it splits it off. So now that we've got that set up, we'll move this over here because we're going to have quite a few nodes. It's going to be long. It's not too complicated, but it's just going to be a long it's going to be a long process. There's a train going by. I apologize if you can hear it. So hit Shift A, and that's a shortcut for add, so you don't have to keep going down here. And I'm going to use that just because I use that a lot, and it's an old habit to break. Once you learn to use that, it's hard to break that habit, and I don't want to confuse you guys, so I'm going to say right now that if you hit Shift and A at the same time, that's the same as hitting this button right here, the add button. So hit Shift A, and then we're going to add a converter and go to math. Now this screen will go bright, so what we're going to do is we're going to click on greater than. So it's by default set to add. We're going to change it to greater than. So now we'll see this bright bit right here. Now this is our light. This is saying what is the biggest source of light in this picture. So as you can see, it's kind of star-like. We don't really want it to look like a star, because that's gonna add some funky lines. So change this value right here from 0.5, and we'll just turn it up to something like, yeah, 0.9 should work. So now this is black. If we try to render this, I'll just hit F12 for a quick render. We just see this black. Why is that? Well, this is running through the greater than. This footage is being turned into this. A way to get past that, the way you're going to need is you go over to color, hit Shift A, go to color, and then mix. And then take this node, put it into one of these images, put it onto here, and then take this and then drag it onto here. And then we'll take from mix, select add. Now anything that we do to this greater than is going to show up in the footage now because we've combined the two. So now hit Shift A, and this is where we're going to start adding the flare. You're going to go to filter and then glare. Now this can be used to create all sorts of things. If you wanted to make it like this, kind of a star pattern, you could do that. You do that simply by changing the streaks. But right now what we're going to do is we're going to take this threshold and we're going to turn that all the way down to 0. So now you kind of see a little bit of flare pop up, but it's in a crosshair pattern because we have 4 streaks. Now the streaks are going to be the actual flare. So we need to turn these down to 2. As you can see, the top ones have gone and now it's just a long ways. So now change this from medium to high, and then once that loads, turn the iterations to 5. Now this is going to be basically really high quality. It's going to look nice once we get it working. So now you can't really see anything, Well, why is that? That's because this fade value here, it's set to a low, see, straight fade out factor. This is how quickly it fades out. So if we turn this higher, we'll put it at 0.995. If you turn it real high, it's just a bar across here. But if we'll turn it to something like this, 0.995, I usually find that works for a lot of things. But now you can see this is really bright. So another thing we're going to do, let's just take these, do that. If you want to know how I did that, just box select, hit B, and then that'll allow you to make a box select, and you can just grab all these things, kind of like if you do on your desktop. But now what we're going to do, we're going to duplicate this, so hit Shift D, and that will copy it basically. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this and click Ghosts, and then take the quality and set it to low, and then turn the iterations down to 2, and this will make it just it won't be as standout-ish. So now we're going to take the threshold and turn it all the way up to 5. Now, you can still kind of see it, but that's going to be part of what we do later. So now that we've got our glare and our ghost, they're both lens flares. But the lens flare that I'm talking about is this bit right here. The lens flare is anything that light hits the lens and it makes it makes a kind of an image that shows up on the lens. But lens flare, I'm talking about like the anamorphic lens flare, that kind, the elongated lens flares. But we're going to use these ghosts to help sell the effect. So hit Shift A, and we're going to add a filter, blur, and then we're going to drag it onto here. And this is a quick way, instead of having to drag it here and then adding the node lines through it, just hold it, click and hold, and then drag it until this line turns orange, and that will automatically put the lines on. It'll automatically connect it. So turn this from Gaussian to fast Gaussian, and then once that loads, turn the X value to 300. Now what this is going to do is it's going to blur the line when you actually, we can actually turn this down a little bit. Yeah, if you want, you can turn this down, but I find long lens flares look better, in my opinion. But as you can see, this lens flare is not really affected, but if you now see the ghosts, where are they? Well, now that we've taken the blur, they're gone. However, once we color them, we'll do that later, they'll show up. This is just making them a little bit longer, and it kind of helps sell the effect. Looks like it makes it look like there's a lot of lens flare, when in reality there's not. It's just the ghosts being blurred and elongated. Now the threshold that we turned up here, this makes them less obvious. If you turned it all the way down, they would be really bright. And see that this does not look good in final render unless, well, in my opinion. But you might think they look good. I don't know. But for this tutorial, we're just going to take that up to 5. Now, take this ghosts node and then hit Shift D to duplicate it, and then turn this ghosts to fog glow. Now, we're going to turn this threshold all the way down, and then the size to 9. And then once this loads, it'll add a glow to it. It's hard to see at first, but if we duplicate this by hitting Shift D and then dragging that onto there, it makes it a little bit more obvious. You can see it got real bright. It's kind of got a haze around it now, and that just helps sell the effect a little bit more. So now this looks really bright white. Now that doesn't work with a scene because this scene is kind of dark, but we can change that by hitting adding a color node. Hit Shift A, go to color, RGB curves, and then I just do this on any one of my compositing shots that I do just to make it brighter, because I always underexpose, and then just make this a little bit brighter. Let's see. Yes, we need to take this now. Nope, wrong one. I'm sorry if I'm confusing you guys, but this just makes it look better if you do your color correction and then you add this. See, now look how much brighter it is. It just looks better. It's a lot easier to work with. I should have done this before, but so now we're going to add a color balance node. So what you do is you hit Shift A, go to color, color balance. Now this color balance is going to we're going to drag it onto this line of nodes, and then let's move this down just so we can see this a little bit better. So now this is going to make this lens flare, and only this lens flare and the ghost and fog glow, this is going to change the color of it. Now the way to color it is you look around, you say is your scene really orange, is it really red, is it green, blue? You do your coloration like we did before, and then you judge how you want it to look after, how you want the color balance to look. So on the lift, we're going to take the red value and we're going to turn this to 0.779, and then we're going to take the green value at 0.931, and the blue, actually we're just going to leave this one at 1. So now you can see this, the long areas out here, the real wide parts, the tips of it have turned a little bit blue. So, and this I've found works left to right. If you look left to right on the lens flare, it's edge, middle, and then the center part is usually this gain, or the last one, and it changes the color of the eye, or the hot spot of the lens flare where it originates. This usually changes that. But now we're going to take the gamma, click on the red or the R, and change this to 0.814, and take the green, change this to 1.074, and the blue to 1.088. Now this is just give it a little bit of blue right here, and you can see it's starting to look a little bit more like this scene, but it's still got that big white overexposed bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the final one, we're going to click on the gain, and just click on this color right here, and this brings this up. You can use this, but it's kind of a guesstimate. If you do this, you can change the dials and get precise numbers. So click on the red and turn this to 0.88, and change the green to 0.956, and the blue to 1.145. And this will give it the center, you can see, is already kind of changing, but look now, it's still got that white, but it's got a blue tint to it, and it makes it look so much better and just helps sell the effect. Now that's really all you need to do to create your own lens flare. The lens flare is all set up, and and you can tweak these however you want to make it look, but just get your own footage with a light. And if you don't want to have these ghosts here, like you can see now they're colored, you don't have to put those in. I just find they help sell the effect a little bit more. So does the fog glow. This is just to make it's a good beginner. If you want to adjust the flare, you can do that too. But what we've done here is just make it look a little bit nicer. So now that we've got this, we're going to want to render this as a video. Well, let's drag this over a little bit. How long is our video? Well, this Blender works in frames, and I've found out already that mine is 277 frames, I believe. I hope I'm right, otherwise I just look like an idiot. 277, and we'll go to the end once it loads. Alright, and if I'm right, that should be the last frame. If not, I look like an idiot, and I'll get to show you the process. Yeah. Nope, didn't work. I look like an idiot. Anyway, so unexpectedly, now I get to show you how. Oh, there it goes. 278. Stupid me. But yeah, sometimes you just have to guess at how long you think it might be. You can go into your video file, look at the properties, and look how long your video is, how many seconds, what frame rate you shot it at, whether it be 24, 30, 60. I shot this at 24 frames, so if you look at how many seconds it is, and then you multiply that by 24, that's how many frames it will be. Not exactly, but it's a rough estimate just to make your search for the end frame a little bit shorter. So now that we've got this, we need to go down. If you want, you can make this a PNG and render it as a as individual photos, but I don't want to do that. It just adds an extra step. So we're just gonna take a H.264. Now you can do any of these movie ones, whichever you prefer, but I prefer to use the H.264. Overwrite, I just keep that on just in case I do something wrong. I don't have to keep saving new named files. Overwrite, just overwrite the one that you did last time. Now sometimes it can be a little bit of a pain because it might overwrite something that you don't want it to, so just be careful of that. But I'm going to leave overwrite on for now, just because it's set at default. So now we'll open the file browser and go to tutorials, and I've already rendered this out just so that I can just so I know what to do so I can show y'all. But what you would do is you would add, say, lens flare, and then you would just hit accept, and then make sure that this resolution right here is at the resolution you want. I have it set at 1080, and then turn this all the way up to 100, which means it'll use the full 100% of the 1080, and it won't be a small box in 1080p. It'll be a full 1080p render. But yeah, that's really all you need to do. And then when you're ready, just hit animation, and then that will render out your video. That's really it. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll show you the rendered video. This video is what it's going to look like. So we've taken it from this to this. So thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this, let me know. If you have any suggestions for tutorials, let me know in the comments. But like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and thank you for watching.